How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 27. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate everybody coming back and listening. On today's podcast, we're going to be covering a new film that we recently watched in theaters. Try to determine, hey, after that one viewing, is this a timeless film? Can I see myself rewatching it in the future if it comes out on Blu-ray or streaming as well? For today's episode, we're going to be covering the new Disney/Pixar film, Lightyear. I'm really excited about this specific film before it came out, just because, again, I've been a huge fan of the Toy Story films. And so when I heard that they were going to make a Lightyear specific movie, I was kind of curious, okay, what direction would it go? I was assuming that it was probably not going to be related to anything in regards to the actual toy or the Toy Story franchise. Just going to be something independent of that. So we're going to be covering that on this specific episode, and you're going to get my thoughts as to whether I liked the film or I thought it was just an okay experience as well. I really just like to start off by kind of going through some of my thoughts before I watched the movie, kind of give you guys a little bit of insight as to maybe why I wanted to watch this movie, why I was kind of curious, maybe there was a specific actor or something that I saw in the trailer. And so let's go ahead and jump in and kind of talk a little bit about the reasons why I wanted to watch Lightyear. Number one reason, it had Chris Evans as the voice of Buzz Lightyear. I've been a big fan of Marvel. I'm pretty sure I sound like a broken record every time I jump on this podcast and talk about something superhero related. But I've just been a really big fan of his ever since I saw him in any of the specific Captain America films. And then I started watching him on Knives Out, and he was such a great character in that specific film. And so I wanted to really see what Chris Evans could bring to the role of Buzz and how he would try to differentiate it from Tim Allen's version of Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story franchise. Tim Allen has had an iconic voice, and everybody recognizes his Buzz Lightyear voice. It's just, again, something that it set the bar very high. So I really wanted to see how would Chris Evans add to the character. You know, how would his voice really try to sound? Would it try to mimic Tim Allen's? Would he try to make it his own version? And that's what I'm always so curious about whenever we kind of see different iterations of characters. One of the things that I always think of is, like, you know, the Joker. We've seen the Joker in the specific film multiple different times, whether it's the Dark Knight trilogy by Heath Ledger, whether it was Jack Nicholson in the 1989 Batman, and then we see Joaquin Phoenix. And then you're kind of curious, you've already seen, or hopefully these actors have kind of seen or kind of gauged how those other actors may have played it. And so it's always fun to see their process to throw out something different, maybe think something outside of the box as well. And so, again, a little curious to see how Chris Evans would play this Buzz Lightyear before I went to go watch it. Another reason why I wanted to watch it was the first trailer that I saw just looked pretty cool. You know, it showed glimpses of space travel. It had like the potential to face off with Zurg. They teased, you know, that Zurg was going to be in this film, but they didn't really show it in one of the first teaser trailers. But it just looked so awesome. And then I've always really enjoyed, you know, the visual aspects of all the Pixar movies. And so I thought, you know what, this would be really fun to kind of see in theaters. And I'm a sucker for, you know, space and seeing all this kind of interstellar travel. And it had a lot of that. So I was super pumped to kind of see how they would try to visualize that and how much action the film might have as well. Another aspect that I kind of alluded to a little bit earlier was that it's a film created by Disney/Pixar. So again, I was kind of wondering if this was really going to be part of the Pixar universe. You know, would it live up to some of the great films that have come before it, like Coco or Soul or WALL-E or Toy Story or Cars, etc. Everybody has their own favorites in that Pixar library of films. And so again, how would it live up to it? You know, would it have a great message? How would the sound be? You know, what would they kind of try to represent in the specific film? Because again, the last couple of Pixar films have been really great. You know, I also saw Luca. You know, Luca was a good film as well. I had Soul. I think the only one I haven't seen is Turning Red. Haven't been able to catch that one, but hopefully I will be able to at least watch that and kind of give my thoughts on it. But just trying to give that kind of a background to it, in that now that it has that Pixar name attached to it, it's going to have to live up to a lot of hype, right? Obviously, each film has its own independent kind of story, but you're always thinking, again, because that Pixar name is attached to it, can they capture that lightning in a bottle like they typically do it for other films like Coco or WALL-E and other films as well? Last but not least, one of the other things that I was kind of curious about is, again, you're basing this story Lightyear off of a character from the Toy Story franchise. And so I was wondering, would there be any mention to the original Toy Story? Again, before watching it, my hope was that they try to just contain this story independent of the actual Toy Story franchise. Don't mention anything about Andy. Don't mention anything about Woody, or don't mention anything about that. I don't really want to hear it. I don't really want to hear like that kind of stuff, or maybe make a connection or have an after credit scene. Again, I really just wanted this to be its own independent thing. Just have it be its own universe, and if it is successful, then hopefully there could be multiple more Lightyear films. But again, I just didn't want there to be a big connection. But it's always so hard, especially for kids that grew up watching the Toy Story films. The first thing you think about is, well, you have Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story. Is he going to act the same? Is it just going to be him? And then when you start realizing that the animation is completely different, he's not actually a toy. This is telling a tale of a real man that is Buzz Lightyear, and what his story it really kind of tells about how he acts, or how he is, or what made him to be, one of those kind of space rangers, as you would call them in the Toy Story franchise. But I just hope that there wasn't that big of a connection. I really just wanted this to be its own thing as well. So those, again, were some of the reasons that kind of interested me to watch Lightyear. Now I kind of want to roll along and tell you a little bit more now that I've actually seen the movie. I ended up watching it on Friday, June 17th at an AMC. Didn't go to Dolby this time. I thought it would just be good to kind of catch it in digital. And I just got to say, I had a good time watching Lightyear. It had its funny moments, and surprisingly had a really good action for a Pixar movie. Typically when we see a lot of different types of Pixar movies, they have their little scenes where, depending on how it is, you might have like really quick and fast visuals that you can keep up with, and it's just all so vibrant and all the different types of colors. And this one was no exception. But I think where it differs is that this one had a lot of different types of action sequences, that mimicked like an actual movie that was based on action, or space travel. It had a lot of different stuff. You had not to spoil too much, but you had Buzz Lightyear fighting off these different types of alien beings. You had him fighting off different types of robots, and we're no strangers if we've seen WALL-E. We've seen these different types of environments, but again, this just felt a little bit different because it had a little bit more of an action focus, and so it was a nice, pace, or a nice change of pace, really, from what we typically see from Pixar. I was gonna say it had a really good message throughout the entire film. It was, again, nothing new for Pixar. They basically kill it every time when it comes to that actual message or theme of the film. But as you would expect, it's obviously revolved around Buzz. It really just tries to speak to how we should never be afraid to ask for help. Even, like if I feel like others might be capable to do other things, we have to give them that chance, other people around us, to see what they can achieve. Instead of always trying to go at it alone, or thinking that, yes, I have this ability, so only I can do this. That's really what that message was from the film. At least, again, in my personal opinion, what I took from it is that Buzz really had to go through that journey. At the beginning, he starts as a space ranger where he thinks that he has to do everything by the book. Everything has to be the way that he says it, or he feels is right. And he can't really trust anybody else. No rookie, no other junior cadet, nobody. It has to be him. And by the end of the film, not to spoil too much of it, but he has to go through that challenge and that acceptance that I really do have to open myself up in order to actually become an even better space ranger. It's not always going to fall in my hands. Even if I feel like I'm the only one that's in control of that situation, sometimes you have to be aware, and you have to, again, look at it from a bigger perspective and look outside the box and see, hey, maybe I might not be right for this situation, but these other people might be as well. And so that's what Buzz ends up learning as the film goes on. The more and more he has to really open up to other cadets and other space rangers is the only way that he's really going to be able to experience and fulfill really what he's trying to accomplish in his mission as well. So really good stuff. Again, Pixar always knocks it out of the park when it comes to the messages, and this was no different. As we would expect as well from Pixar movies, there are also those deep emotional moments that shape the main character. This moment was very similar to Interstellar. If anybody's seen it, again, spoiler warning for Interstellar if you haven't seen it, but at the beginning of the film, you kind of go through a specific mission that Buzz is trying to see and achieve. He's trying to hit this specific hyperspeed with his specific ship, and they're using different types of crystals and really it's some type of source of fuel in the film. But what ends up happening is that after each test that he performs to try to go through hyperspeed, years go by in this specific film. And so he's only aging a couple of minutes while his best friend, is aging years, so he's losing out on those experiences in life because he's so committed to his mission. And that reminded me so much of Interstellar. In Interstellar, where you see that one specific piece where Matthew McConaughey's character goes into one of those specific planets. I forget the name of it. And he only spends 7 minutes there, but when he comes back to his ship, it's been 7 years. And so all this craziness like that of how space travel might work, and you get to see that, but from Buzz's perspective, it's just an entire lifetime that he ends up missing, where his best friend Hawthorne is just, basically has a family, has kids, has grandkids. It's incredible how time passes, but Buzz doesn't even see it that way because his only mission in life is basically to try to hit hyperspeed. And obviously, look what happens when you kind of have that tunnel vision, right? You end up missing out on key or important moments. And so I thought it was super cool because, again, that really hit that emotional string for me, in that when you're so focused and you're so kind of embedded in what you want to do or want to accomplish, that sometimes you miss the details, right? Some of the, I guess another message that I didn't even realize is, it's not the destination that's important. Really, it's the journey to that destination. And so that's kind of what Buzz ended up hitting at the beginning of the film. So he ended up missing out on a lot of different moments that people that weren't obviously going through hyperspeed, they were experiencing normal life. And Buzz was really missing out on all of that as well. There were also some funny moments. I'm going to be honest, probably one of my nitpicks. It did have some good, funny scenes, but I don't think it was as funny as other Pixar movies that came before it. Not that I'm expecting each one to be a comedy, because again, that's not really what Pixar does. But some of its films just have really good moments that just click with me. But again, I guess just for this instance, some of the jokes fell flat for me during this film, or some of them had already been called out in the trailer. So I didn't really, laugh as much as I did if I would have heard it for the first time. But again, that's more of just like a nitpick on my side. I, again, just thought it could have done hopefully a little bit better with some of the jokes that they were telling, or expanded a little bit more to kind of show that connection that Buzz has with some other cadets throughout the film. But again, just for me, nitpick, I didn't find it as funny to other films that I've seen in the past from Pixar. Now, one of the points that I brought up on the first segment, which was, what was the connection going to look like for the Toy Story franchise and Lightyear? And so at the beginning of the movie, they actually did mention that Andy from Toy Story and how he fell in love with Buzz after watching this story. So basically, we were watching the movie that Andy watched that made him fall in love with Buzz Lightyear. And so that was the only connection, and that was basically the biggest extent to that connection to Toy Story franchise that they made, which I liked. Again, I didn't want to see any kind of mention of the other Toy Story characters. I didn't want there to be an after credit scene that showed, the original Buzz Lightyear. I didn't want to see any of that. I'm okay with just one sentence, like, this is the story that Andy from the Toy Story franchise fell in love with. Now you're going to see it. And so again, I thought it was really cool. I didn't want them to kind of push too much of the Toy Story franchise. Again, I wanted this to be something independent and free from that specific movie as well. So again, really cool that they made just that one sentence at the beginning of the movie and just kind of push forward with it as well. Overall, it was a good movie with a good message. Definitely could have improved in certain parts. Again, the joke aspect of it, that's more from a nitpick on my side. There's just different parts of the movie where it kind of slowed down a little bit, then it kind of picked up, and then it kind of slowed down a little bit. Also, the third act kind of, when I was watching it, I was like, I guess this makes sense. Again, I'm not going to spoil it too much just because I want you guys to kind of experience it and enjoy it. But again, there's definitely certain parts that could have probably been improved. Maybe if I were to rewatch it again, I would probably appreciate it a little bit more. But it was an enjoyable movie nonetheless. All right, now that I've kind of given you a little bit more of my detailed thoughts about the overall experience that I had watching Lightyear, I now want to cover my favorite performance of the entire film. Considering that, he had the most scenes and the movie revolves around his character, I got to go with Chris Evans. He portrayed Buzz in a similar fashion to Tim Allen, very serious, very much like he is a cadet. He is a Boy Scout, and he has to be, again, he needs to log everything in. And it's exactly how Tim Allen played him in the Toy Story in the first film. And I really appreciate it. Again, he was always kind of communicating with Star Command, always logging things in, even explaining that, hey, I need to log these things in because I need to stay focused on my mission. And so, again, he was just trying to be a really good space ranger, and I think Chris Evans really portrayed that, again, in his voice. It's just kind of throwing it out there that, hey, like, I am a very serious guy. I'm not here to have fun. I'm really here to kind of accomplish what my goals are. I feel like this is a tough one as well as compared to other live action movies that I've seen. This is just all voice acting. And so, again, we're not really seeing the actor and his facial reactions. We're really just relying on the animation. So props to Pixar and Disney for giving Buzz some really good facial reactions as, again, you get to hear Chris Evans just voice Buzz Lightyear and try to give his interpretation as to what he would act like or what he would do as he was going along this movie and trying to accomplish his mission. So kudos to Chris Evans. I thought he did a really good job. It was definitely something different than Tim Allen, and he obviously got a little bit more time than Tim Allen to just kind of portray his character throughout the movie as well. But yes, good job to Chris Evans on the performance in Lightyear. All right, I want to move along now to my favorite scene or moment of the film. This I do want to throw out as a spoiler warning. Again, this happens in the third act, so if you have not seen Lightyear, definitely go ahead and skip ahead a couple minutes or like the video so you can come back and join us when you actually watch the movie as well. Okay, hopefully this is enough time before I kind of jump into spoilers, but this moment actually happened in the third act. It actually was really cool because it was one continuous shot in animation where Buzz is escaping an exploding ship. So just for a little background, this exploding ship is actually owned by Zurg. That's right. Spoiler warning, Zurg is the villain of this film. And as it's exploding, you see Buzz actually kind of go out into space and he's kind of floating, trying to escape the explosion. And he ends up finding a way to get onto a ship called the XL ship. This is one of the ships that actually was not destroyed from the explosion. And then out of nowhere, as Buzz is in his XL ship, trying to find a way to get out of the blast wave of the explosion, Zurg appears and he begins to tear parts of his ship. That way he doesn't try to escape. He has no other choice but to eject, and then you finally get to see his famous jetpack wings, the ones that come out like in the Toy Story franchise, and then Chris Evans delivers the cool and epic line of Buzz Lightyear that says, "Not today, Zurg," and he shoots him with his laser blaster. Super cool, ends up blasting Zurg away off the ship, and then, we'll continue the scene on there. Obviously, it kind of delves into a little bit more spoilers, but I'm not going to go there. But I just thought it was super cool to see that one shot in animation, and again, to no surprise, it was an action scene. I always tend to love those just because of how, intense they can get, or how it kind of just, it raises the anxiety of like what's going to happen in that specific scene. Obviously, I don't think that Lightyear was really going to die, but it was just so cool again to see him kind of flying through and floating through space really, and getting on a ship, and then eventually seeing those jetpack wings that he's so famous for, the Buzz Lightyear toy is really, and then being able to see him say that line and shoot that laser blaster. It was so cool. I really enjoyed that, and that was, again, my favorite scene of the film. Okay, I mentioned at the beginning of the film that I went to go watch this at AMC, so the next segment is really talking about would I recommend watching it in theaters or streaming. Although it is a character that most people do know, again, a lot of kids or even adults grew up watching Toy Story, I don't think it's a requirement to actually check this one out in theaters. If you're a big fan already of Toy Story or Pixar, then feel free. Don't let me stop you. Again, it's definitely a good time to go watch it in theaters. But just from my experience and my recommendation is just probably to wait for this to come out in Disney Plus if it does end up coming to that streaming service. It was a good movie, but there was nothing that really elevated it from watching it in the big screen. I was expecting there to be kind of specific scenes of spaceships and having it be super loud, and that way the surround sound just kind of makes it even more impactful, but it actually wasn't too bad. It wasn't too loud. And so again, I don't really feel like the experience of watching it in theaters is going to elevate this film to another grade or make it anything more special. I honestly feel like there wouldn't be a difference of you watching it in theaters or watching it at home when it comes out in Disney Plus. So that's going to be my recommendation, guys. You can definitely wait for this when it comes to streaming. All right, everybody, now we are in the last segment of the Timeless Movie Podcast, and it is the important question that we always have to ask: is this film timeless? So in this case, is Lightyear timeless for me? Even though it had a great message, I do not believe Lightyear is a timeless movie. Again, it's very hard, especially again knowing that it's attached to Pixar and to Disney. It's very hard to not compare it to the other films, but it just does not live up to the greatness of those films like Toy Story or The Incredibles or Coco. It has its moments, and again, it's just the animation is always at the top level. Every time you think of animation and films that deal with animation, Pixar is always the top. It's really the bar, and it's just set so high. But again, it just didn't really, connect with me to kind of, go through and be like, yeah, I really need to watch this film. The actual theme of the film is really great. Buzz is really trying to understand himself a bit better, showing the ways of how Buzz Lightyear got his laser blaster and his jetpack wings, or even the various action scenes regarding space travel. It was all fun to see. But again, nothing really wowed me about the movie. I mentioned it a bit before. I was hoping that the noise or the actual kind of screen size of the film at the theaters would make it even more incredible or make it even a better experience to watch. But again, didn't really have much of a difference. So again, I can't really base it off of like, yes, this going to watch it at AMC or any theaters is going to be that game changer. It really wasn't for me. Also, again, there was different types of scenes where you, again, would go through the different types of space travel or different types of alien planets. I was hoping to kind of hear some like weird or funky noises, but no, it all kind of sounded pretty normal. Compared that to Top Gun, where you could feel the jet every time it would make a hard turn or after a jet took off. It was all impressive. Now, granted, I ended up seeing Top Gun in Dolby, so the comparison is probably not fair, but I was hoping for something that could make the theater experience very special, and I just didn't get that really. I also felt like some of the interactions between the characters were just okay. Sometimes in Pixar movies, the side characters are some of the funniest or the most interesting. In this film, I didn't really gravitate towards any of the side characters. I was always focusing on Buzz, and again, I know, the Lightyear is basically his movie. I completely understand that. But, like I mentioned, in other specific films, sometimes those side characters are really what elevate and make the film even more enjoyable. And I really just didn't get that from Lightyear as well. Now, that could have been a personal thing, but I was really hoping that the supporting characters would be the highlight, but they really weren't. So, although I enjoyed the message of Buzz discovering himself, I just felt like I'm okay with watching this film once. Now, would I watch it again? Like if one of my family members wanted to see it on Disney Plus, then yeah, of course, I'd be down to watch it. I'm not going to reject it. But, me personally, I don't really feel the need to rewatch it myself. Like I'm not going to be thinking like, hey, let's watch Lightyear. It's not really going to come up. But those are my thoughts on watching Lightyear. Again, those are just personal opinions. I could be way off on the message or way off on anything that I described. That's okay. I'm not a movie expert. I'm not trying to be a movie expert. I just really want to give my thoughts about a specific film that I got to catch in theaters. More importantly, though, I want to hear what you guys have to say. What did you think about Lightyear if you've gotten a chance to go see it? Did you like it? Did you not really like it? Do you think it's timeless? Well, let me know down below in the comments. I really want to hear from you guys. And again, maybe I'm off. Maybe what I was describing is completely off base. I want to hear that, guys. Let me know down in the comments below. Well, everybody, this is the end of the Timeless Movie Podcast. I appreciate everybody sticking around and listening to my thoughts about Lightyear. It was a really fun time. Again, I still enjoyed the movie, but not a timeless one for me. My name has been Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 27 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. I look forward to talking to you guys again on next week's episode where we'll try to cover a new film and try to see if we can consider this timeless. All right, guys, have a great rest of your weekend and a great week as well. Thanks.